first minute. A single father barely keeping his life together. A young woman on the edge of losing everything she built. And a ruthless man hiding behind paperwork, sabotaging vans, and waiting for her company to collapse so he could swallow it whole. When the rain comes down and the brakes fail on a dark road, the fight is no longer about business. It's about survival, about family, and about a love neither of them saw coming. Stay with me until the very end, because the twist will shake you. And please, hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments. I want to see how far this story has traveled tonight. The rain had started an hour before sunset and showed no sign of stopping. It came down in slanted sheets across the industrial strip at the eastern edge of Seattle, drumming against corrugated roofs, hissing on the hot hoods of cars that had been running all day, filling the chewed-up asphalt of the alley behind Cole Auto Restoration with shallow, oil-slicked puddles. Inside the shop, under the humming white glow of two old fluorescent tubes that Adrian had been meaning to replace for almost a year, the air smelled the way it always smelled, like motor oil, rubber, warm metal, and the faint ghost of the coffee he had burned in the pot around 11 that morning. Adrian Cole stood hunched over the open hood of a 1972 Chevelle, a drop light pinched between his shoulder and jaw, his hands black with grease up past the wrists. He was 32 years old, and his lower back hurt the way a much older man's back hurt, and he had exactly $9 and change in his wallet until Tuesday, and he was trying very hard not to think about any of those things. He had a trick for it. He thought about the next bolt, and then the next bolt, and then the next. "Daddy!" The voice came from the office door behind him, small and serious. Adrian did not look up right away. He tightened the intake manifold bolt another quarter turn, waited for the soft click of the torque wrench, then set the wrench down carefully on the fender mat so it would not scratch the paint. "What's up, Bug?" "You said 15 minutes. He glanced at the clock on the far wall. The clock had a cracked face and a second hand that sometimes stuck. It said 8:40. He had told her 15 minutes at 7:30. "Yeah," he said, "I did say that." "It's been a lot of 15 minutes. She said it without any real anger, which was somehow worse. Adrian wiped his hands on the red shop rag tucked into his back pocket, the one Maddie had embroidered his initials onto with a crooked chain stitch for Father's Day last June, and turned around. Maddie Cole stood in the office doorway in her purple pajamas and the fuzzy socks with the cartoon foxes on them. Her dark hair was still damp at the ends from the bath she had taken on her own an hour ago, because he had told her he'd be right there, and then had not been. She was 6 years old, and she was holding a book against her chest with both arms, the way people hold things that matter to them. "I'm sorry, Bug," he said. "I really am." "It's okay," she said. "It's not okay, I said 15. "I know. I'm almost done. 10 more minutes. Real 10. "Real 10? She said, suspicious. "Real 10. I swear on the fox socks." She smiled, just a little, and that small smile did something to him that he didn't have words for and didn't want to examine. He walked over, crouched down on his heels so they were eye level, and tapped her chin with the cleanest knuckle he could find. "Go pick the page," he said. "I'll be there before the monster gets to the door." "The monster's already at the door, Daddy. That's where we left off." "Then tell him to hold on." She laughed, a short, hiccuping sound, and patted away toward the small back room he had converted into a bedroom for her a couple of years back. It wasn't much. A bed, a dresser from a thrift store, a shelf of books, a lamp shaped like a crescent moon. It wasn't a house. He knew it wasn't a house. He had promised her a house, and he had not delivered on that yet, and the not delivering sat in his chest like a stone he carried around all day. He stood up, joints popping, and went back to the Chevelle. That was when he heard the tires. They came in too fast, locked up halfway down the alley, and slid the last few feet on wet pavement. He heard the thump of a curb strike, and then the high, unhealthy shriek of a serpentine belt slipping on a wet pulley. A moment later, headlights washed through the open bay door and painted the back wall of the shop yellow. Adrian set down his wrench a second time that night and walked toward the mouth of the garage. The van was a late-model Ford Transit, white, with a faded logo on the side that read, Heart Express Courier, in a blue script that looked like it had been hand-painted by someone with more hope than budget. The engine was still running, making a rough, stuttering sound that Adrian did not like at all. A cough every third revolution, the unmistakable pop of a misfire. Steam was coming out from under the hood in little polite puffs, as if the engine were embarrassed about itself. The driver's door opened and a woman half fell, half climbed out into the rain. She was maybe 27, 28, dark hair plastered to the sides of her face, a canvas jacket that had given up on being water-resistant about an hour ago. Her boots hit the wet ground hard and she caught herself with one hand on the van door, then straightened up and shoved her hair out of her eyes with the back of her wrist. She was not crying. Adrian registered that right away. A lot of people cried when their vehicle died on them in the rain at 8:40 at night. She was not one of them. Her jaw was set in a way he recognized from his own mirror. "You open?" she called. "Sign says closed," he called back. "Sign's lying?" He almost smiled. He didn't quite. "Sign's negotiable," he said. "Pull her in before she drowns." She tried. The van lurched forward about 6 feet, and then the engine coughed once, shuddered, and quit. She sat behind the wheel for a second with her hands on the top of the steering wheel, and he saw her forehead drop against her knuckles, just for a breath. Then she lifted her head, got out again, and slammed the door harder than she needed to. "Sorry," she said. "Sorry, that wasn't at you." "I figured," Adrian said. He walked past her and put his hand on the warped sheet metal of the hood. It was hot, hotter than it should have been. He could feel it through his palm. "How long's she been running like that?" "Like what?" "Like she wants to die." The woman let out a breath that was almost a laugh but had nothing funny in it. 3 weeks, she said. "Maybe 4. 4 weeks. I've had her in twice. They said she was fine." "Who said she was fine?" She hesitated. It was the first real hesitation he had seen in her. Her eyes flicked past him, into the garage, and then back. "The company I contract through," she said finally. "They've got a fleet shop. It's part of the agreement. We're supposed to take all our vans there." "Supposed to," Adrian said. "Required to." Huh. He let that sit for a second. He pulled the hood release, waited for the hiss, and lifted the hood the rest of the way. A wave of heat came up at him, and with it, a smell that made him take a small step back. Not just hot oil, not just coolant, but something sharper, acrid, wrong. "Okay," he said, mostly to himself. "Okay, hold on." "What?" "Hang on a second." He turned and grabbed a shop light off its hook, ran the cord to the nearest outlet, and leaned in over the engine bay. The woman came around the side and stood behind his shoulder, close enough that he could feel her there, trying to see what he was seeing. "I'm Lena, by the way," she said. "Lena Hart. That's my company, obviously." "Adrian Cole." He didn't take his eyes off the engine. "Like the shop." "Like the shop. You own it?" "Such as it is." He traced the line of the coolant hose with the beam of the light, then the fuel line, then dropped the light lower and peered down behind the airbox. For a long moment he did not say anything. Then he made a small sound in the back of his throat, something between a grunt and a swear word that he swallowed before it got out. "Lena," he said. "Yeah. When'd you last have your oil changed?" 2 weeks ago, Monday. Their shop." "Why?" "Huh." "Stop saying huh. What is it?" He straightened up, wiping his hands on the rag again, and turned to look at her properly for the first time. She was taller than he had thought, standing up. Her eyes were a kind of tired brown that had been tired for a long time. She had a small, thin scar that ran through one eyebrow. He did not look at it for long. "When's the last time you looked under the hood yourself?" he asked. "I don't know. I'm not a mechanic. That's kind of the point of paying their shop." "Right." "Adrian." "Yeah." "Just tell me." He took a breath. He had done a lot of things in his life that he wasn't proud of, and a few that he was. And one of the few things he had learned along the way was that when you told somebody something they didn't want to hear, you did it straight, and you did it kindly, and you did not drag it out. "Somebody put sugar in your oil cap threads," he said. "Not a lot. Just enough to make a mess. And the PCV valve's been pulled and put back in wrong, like deliberately wrong. And your serpentine belt's been nicked." He pointed without touching. "You see that cut right there? That's not wear. That's a razor blade. Somebody took a razor and scored it halfway through so it'd fail on you in about, I don't know, another day of driving, maybe 2. She stared at him. "That's not possible," she said. "I'm looking right at it." "No, I mean, the shop. They wouldn't—" "I'm not saying the shop," Adrian said. I'm saying somebody. Could be anybody with access to the van. Who has access to my van? I do. My driver does, if he's using it that day. And the fleet shop, that's it. She said this to him, but she wasn't really saying it to him. She was saying it to herself, trying the sentence out, and he watched her face change as she heard it. The anger came up first, the hot, fast kind, and then under it, right behind her eyes, something that he recognized and did not like seeing on another person. Fear. Not fear of tonight, fear of a lot of nights. She took a step back from the engine bay, pressed her palm flat against her sternum like she was trying to push her own heart back into place, and let out a long, slow breath. Son of a bitch, she said quietly. Yeah, Adrian said. Son of a bitch. Yeah. She stood there for a second. The rain drummed on the metal roof of the garage, loud and steady. A car went by on the main road at the end of the alley, its headlights sweeping briefly across the bay and gone. How much is it? She said. To fix. Don't worry about that right now. I'm going to worry about that right now, because I have to. Lena. How much? Adrian considered her. He considered the canvas jacket and the tired eyes and the pride he could feel coming off her in waves, sharp as ozone. He considered the way she had said the company I contract through and the way her voice had gone small on the word required. Belt's a belt, he said. I've got one in stock. The PCV I can pull off another Transit we parted out last month. It'll fit. Oil, filter, flush. I can have you out of here by morning. How much? On the house. No. Lena. No, I don't take that. It's a belt and a valve and an oil change. I don't take that, she said, and her voice went tight, almost angry. I don't take favors. I'll pay you. Tell me the number or I'll push this van back into the rain and figure it out somewhere else. He looked at her for a long moment. $50, he said. Parts and labor. That's what I charge. That's a lie. That's my rate tonight. Adrian. $50, Lena. Take it or push. She stared at him. Her jaw worked. He could see her trying to decide which thing to be angry about first. Then, without looking away from him, she reached into her back pocket, took out a battered leather wallet, and counted out 2 20s and a 10 onto the edge of his tool bench, flattening each bill with her palm like she was daring him to refuse them. $50, she said. $50, he agreed. And you'll tell me everything you find. Everything. Daddy? Both of them turned toward the office door. Maddie was standing there again, barefoot this time, the book still hugged to her chest. Her eyes were very large and very awake. I heard a loud noise, she said. It's okay, Bug. Just a van. Is someone hurt? Nobody's hurt. Maddie looked past him at Lena. She looked at Lena's wet hair and her wet jacket and her wet boots. Then she looked at Adrian. She's wet, Daddy. Yeah, she is. We have towels. It was the simplest thing in the world. Adrian felt his mouth do something that might have been the start of a smile. He glanced at Lena. Lena was looking at Maddie like she hadn't quite expected a 6-year-old to be standing in a garage doorway at 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, Bug, Adrian said. We have towels. Go get the blue one off the hook in the bathroom, okay? Just the blue one. Don't grab the one with the paint on it. Okay. She turned and padded away. Lena watched her go. Her face did a complicated thing that Adrian could not entirely read. You have a kid, she said. I have a kid. In the garage. In the back, yeah. There's a room. It's fine. It's clean. I wasn't judging. Okay? I wasn't. Okay, Lena. She looked at him. Rain ticked against the roof. He could see her deciding something, or trying to. Who watches her, she said, when you're working late? She watches herself, mostly. She's a good sleeper. I'm 15 feet away. Where's her mom? He felt the question land the way those questions always landed, right in the middle of his chest, a little to the left of where his ribs met. He did not show it. He had gotten good at not showing it. She's not in the picture, he said. Sorry. Don't be. It's been a long time. Still. Yeah. She nodded once and looked away, and he was grateful for that. Some people pushed. She didn't push. That was something. Maddie came back with the blue towel folded as neatly as a 6-year-old can fold a towel, which was not very neatly, and held it up to Lena with both hands. Lena crouched down so they were the same height and took it carefully, like Maddie had handed her something breakable. "Thank you," Lena said. "What's your name?" "Madeline Cole. But everyone calls me Maddie or Bug because of Daddy." "Why Bug?" "I don't know. He's always called me that." "Haven't you, Daddy?" "Always," Adrian said. "What's your name?" Maddie asked. "Lana." "That's a pretty name." "So is Madeline." "Is your van sick?" "Very sick." "Daddy's good at fixing sick things." "I heard that." Maddie nodded very seriously, like she had confirmed an important rumor. "Bug," Adrian said. "Bedtime, real bedtime. I'll be there in 10, I swear on the fox socks." "You already swore on the fox socks." "I'm swearing again, double fox socks." She sighed the long-suffering sigh of a 6-year-old who has heard it all before and patted away again. Lena watched her go. When she turned back to Adrian, her face had softened, just a fraction, around the eyes. "She's a whole person," Lena said. "She's the whole person." "Yeah, I can see that." Adrian rolled his shoulders, pushed the conversation back toward the engine with both hands. He was not used to people looking at Maddie the way Lena had just looked at Maddie, and he didn't know what to do with it. "Okay," he said. "Give me 30 minutes. Go sit in the office. There's a chair. I'll put the space heater on. I can help." "You can sit." "Adrian, Lena, sit. You're soaked, you're tired, and you've been driving a sabotaged vehicle for 2 weeks. Sit." She opened her mouth. She closed it. She went and sat in the office. He worked on the van for 43 minutes. He pulled the belt and replaced it. He pulled the PCV valve, cleaned the seat, replaced it with the one he had pulled off the parted-out Transit the month before, labeled in Sharpie on a scrap of masking tape with the date. He drained the oil, which came out darker and grittier than oil that had been changed 2 weeks ago had any business being. He changed the filter. He refilled it. He checked the brake lines. Because once you start finding things wrong, you check everything. The brake lines were not cut. That was the one thing he found that was not wrong. It was not very much comfort. While he worked, he talked to her through the open office door. It was easier to talk to her when he was not looking at her. "Tell me about the contract," he said. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." So she told him, bits of it. Not the whole story, not that first night, but enough. Her name was Lena Hart. She was 28. She had started Hart Express Courier 4 years ago with $3,000 and a used Ford E150 that she had bought from her uncle for under Blue Book. She had picked up medical courier runs, lab samples, prescriptions, small urgent deliveries between clinics and labs across the greater Seattle area, because that was a corner of the business that the big shipping companies did not really want and did not really do well. She had worked 18-hour days for 3 years. She had built it up to 6 vans, 8 drivers, and a client list that included 2 major hospital systems. And then, 18 months ago, she had signed a contract. "With who?" Adrian said, threading the new belt onto the idler pulley. "His name's Marcus Ridley. He runs a company called Ridley Fleet Solutions. They're supposed to do, maintenance and dispatch optimization for independent couriers. If you sign with them, you get lower insurance rates through their pool. You get guaranteed shop rates. You get access to their dispatch software, which is, honestly, incredible. I couldn't build anything like it on my own." And the contract's got an exclusivity clause. I can only service my vehicles at their shop. I can only insure through their pool. I can only dispatch through their software. And if I break any of that, or if I miss a payment, or if my fleet falls below a certain performance threshold, "They take your company," Adrian said. "They take my routes," she said, "my client list, my driver contracts, everything but the vans. And the vans are leased through them anyway, so yeah, effectively, yeah. They take the company." "How'd they sell you on that?" "I needed the insurance rate." "That was it?" "That was it. My old carrier dropped me after one of my drivers got in an accident that wasn't her fault. Nobody else would touch me at a rate I could afford. Ridley offered me a rate I could afford. I signed. I read the contract. I knew what was in it. I signed anyway." Adrian wiped his hands on the rag. "Nobody signs a contract thinking it's going to eat them," he said. "I'm eating it now. Yeah, my shop bills have tripled in the last 6 months. I took my van in for a rattle. They charged me $1,100 and gave it back to me with a new rattle. I took it in for the new rattle. They charged me $900 more. My drivers keep getting dinged on the dispatch software for performance issues that I can't verify because I can't access the back end. Every ding costs me. Every ding lowers my performance threshold. And when my threshold hits the floor, he takes it. He takes it. And you can't just cancel. Cancellation fee is $240,000. Adrian stopped what he was doing. He looked through the open office door at her. She was sitting in the duct-taped office chair with the blue towel around her shoulders, her hands wrapped around a paper cup of the terrible instant coffee he had made her, looking straight ahead at the wall. Lena. Yeah. That's not legal. It's in the contract. I don't care if it's in the contract. That's not legal. That's extortion with a pen. My lawyer said the same thing. My lawyer also said that fighting it in court would cost me about $100,000 in 2 years, and I don't have $100,000, and in 2 years there won't be a company to fight over. Adrian looked down at the engine bay of her van. Well, he said, now we know who cut your belt. We don't know that. Lena. We don't, not for sure. Somebody with access to your fleet is sabotaging your vehicles slowly enough that you'll start missing deliveries. Missed deliveries hit your performance threshold. Performance threshold bottoms out. He takes the company. Come on. She was quiet for a long moment. If we're right, she said very carefully, and I'm not saying we are, but if we're right, then he's putting my drivers on the road in sabotaged vans. My drivers. Maria has 3 kids. Dev just got married. I know. He's putting them on the road in vans that are designed to fail. I know. I could have hit somebody tonight. If the brakes had gone instead of the belt, don't. No, but don't, Lena. He said it harder than he meant to. She looked at him through the doorway. He looked back. Don't walk down that road tonight, he said quieter. That road's got nothing for you tonight. Tomorrow you can walk that road all you want. Tonight, you're sitting in my office, and your van is almost fixed, and you're going to drink that terrible coffee, and you're going to be okay, yeah? She didn't answer for a second. Then she nodded, once. Yeah, she said. Okay, yeah. He finished the van at 9:37. He wiped down the engine bay, closed the hood, and rolled out from under the chassis one last time with his shirt stuck to his back from the heat off the exhaust. He walked into the office. Lena was still in the chair. The coffee was gone. She was looking at a small framed photo on his desk. Maddie at 4, holding a plastic toy wrench and grinning at the camera like she'd won a prize. She's you, Lena said without looking up. She's better than me. That's what parents always say. Yeah, but in my case it's true. She almost smiled. How much do I owe you? She said. Really? $50? We settled that. Adrian. $50, Lena. The other thing, the thing we talked about, that's different. That's not something I'm charging for. She looked up at him. What thing we talked about? She said. We didn't talk about it yet, but we're going to. Adrian. I want to look at your other vans. No. Lena. No. You can't. Adrian, listen to me. If Ridley finds out I had somebody else touch one of my vehicles, the contract's void. He takes everything, tomorrow morning, and he doesn't need to do anything fancy to do it. That's in Section 4. I read it. I know it's in there. I can't have you near my fleet. Then I don't touch the fleet. I look at them. I inspect them. I don't put a wrench on a single bolt. I tell you what I see, and you decide what to do with it. Adrian, you've got 6 vans. 5 of them are still out there, and if he did this to yours, he did it to theirs. Your drivers are out there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., Lena. All of them, in vehicles that somebody has been cutting belts on. She closed her eyes. I can't pay you, she said. I didn't ask you to. I don't take favors. It's not a favor. Call it a professional courtesy. From who to who? From a guy who fixes cars to a woman whose drivers are about to start their day. She opened her eyes. Why? She said. Why do you care? He thought about that. He thought about it honestly, because she had asked honestly. Because Maria has 3 kids, he said, and Dev just got married, and because I spent 4 years of my life in a job where I watched a man do something almost exactly like what you're describing, to somebody who wasn't as tough as you are, and I didn't do anything about it, And I've thought about that every day for 6 years, so. She didn't answer right away. What job? She said. Doesn't matter. Adrian. Another life, Lena. It was another life. She let it go. He was grateful. He was learning in real time that she knew when to let a thing go, and that was a rare and useful quality in a person. Okay, she said. Okay. You can look at them. Just look. You don't touch. You don't talk to my drivers about it. You come to my yard after hours and you look and you tell me. That's it. That's the deal. That's the deal. When? Tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. Bring coffee, he said. Not the instant. I can't drink that stuff twice in 2 days. You made the instant. I made it under duress. She laughed, a small, tired, surprised laugh, and he realized he wanted to hear her laugh again. He filed that realization away in a part of his head that he did not have time for right now and probably would not have time for a long while, and he walked her out to her van. The rain had let up. The alley smelled of wet asphalt and cold metal, and faintly, the lilac bush that grew against the back fence behind his shop, the one his landlord had been threatening to cut down for 2 years and had not yet. Lena opened the driver's door. The overhead light came on. She paused with one hand on the doorframe and looked back at him. Adrian? Yeah. Thank you. $50. I'm not thanking you for the $50. He nodded. I know, he said. You're welcome. She got in. The engine turned over on the first try, caught, and ran smooth. He listened to it for a few seconds. No miss, no cough, no stutter, and felt the small, particular satisfaction that he always felt when something that had been broken was running right again. It was maybe the only feeling he trusted anymore. She rolled down the window. Tomorrow night, she said. 7. I'll text you the address. I don't have your number. I'll figure that out before 7. Fair enough. She pulled out of the alley. He watched the red taillights until they turned onto the main road and were gone. He stood there in the rain for a long time, longer than he meant to. Then he went back inside, killed the shop lights, locked the bay door, and walked down the short hallway to Maddie's room. She was asleep finally, with the book open on her chest and the moon-shaped lamp still on. He took the book, marked the page with the ribbon, set the book on the shelf, and turned off the lamp. He kissed her forehead. She did not wake up. I'm sorry, Bug, he said very quietly. Real 10 was more like real 90. I'll do better. He stood there for a second looking at her in the dark. Then he went out to the office, sat down in the chair that Lena had just sat in, and pulled out the battered spiral notebook he kept in the top drawer. He opened it to a fresh page. He wrote, at the top in his blocky all-caps handwriting, Ridley Fleet Solutions. Underneath that he wrote, belt, cut. Razor blade looks like. Half depth. PCV, reinstalled wrong. Deliberate. Oil, contaminated. Sugar or similar in cap threads. Brake lines, intact tonight. Check others. Contract. Exclusivity plus performance threshold. Cancellation fee, $240,000. Driver list, Maria, 3 kids. Dev, married. Others. TBD. Access. Fleet shop only. Then, at the bottom, underlined twice. Not a favor. Not charity. This is a debt I owe somebody else. He looked at the page for a long time. The rain had started up again outside, softer now, tapping at the office window. Somewhere a long way off, a freight train let out one low, mournful note and then another. He closed the notebook. He put it back in the drawer. He turned off the office light. Then he sat in the dark for a while, thinking about a woman with a blue towel around her shoulders and tired brown eyes and a cancellation fee the size of a house and a 6-year-old girl asleep in the next room and a promise he had made a long time ago to a person who was no longer around to hold him to it. He thought about how easy it would be to not show up tomorrow night. He thought about how he was going to show up anyway. Outside, the rain kept falling on the industrial strip at the edge of Seattle, and inside the shop, under the hum of the fluorescent tubes he had been meaning to replace for almost a year, Adrian Cole sat in the dark and listened to his daughter breathing through the thin wall, and he did not sleep for a long time. He slept maybe 4 hours. He woke up at 5:20, which was 10 minutes before the alarm he had set and forgotten to turn off from when he used to have a real job, and he lay in the dark for a full minute before he remembered why his chest felt tight. Then he remembered. A woman in a blue towel. A cancellation fee the size of a house. A razor cut on a serpentine belt. A notebook in a desk drawer. He got up. He made Maddie's lunch while the coffee brewed. Peanut butter and banana on the whole wheat bread because the white was gone, and baby carrots in a baggie, and the last of the goldfish crackers from the big box he'd bought at the warehouse store 3 weeks ago. He wrote a note on a paper napkin, the way he always did, folded it in half, tucked it into the lunch bag. Today the note said, "Have a good day, Bug. Double fox socks." He wasn't a poet. She didn't need a poet. At 6:15, he woke her up with one hand on her back, the way he had done since she was 2, and she made the small complaining sound she always made and rolled over into the pillow. He gave her 90 seconds. That was the rule. 90 seconds to be grumpy about being alive, and then she had to get up. At 6:45, she was at the kitchen table in the apartment above the shop. It wasn't much of an apartment, just the 2 rooms above the office, but it was theirs, eating the cereal he had poured for her and frowning at a worksheet about the number 8. "Daddy." "Yeah, Bug." "Is the lady okay?" He looked up from the sink. "What lady?" "The wet lady. Her name's Lena. Is Lena okay?" He thought about how to answer that. He turned off the water. He dried his hands on the dish towel that had a picture of a lemon on it, which Maddie had picked out herself at the thrift store last year because she had liked the lemon. "She's going to be okay," he said. "We're working on it." "We are?" "I am. Working on it. Can I help?" "You already helped, Bug. You gave her the towel." "That was a good thing to do?" "It was a very good thing to do." She nodded, satisfied, and went back to the number 8. She wrote it like a snowman with one eye closed. He watched her for a second and felt something turn over in his chest, the small private ache that he lived with all the time now. The one that said, "I am doing this alone, and I am probably doing it wrong, but she is the best person I know." At 7:40, he walked her the 6 blocks to Emerson Elementary, her hand in his, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. The rain had stopped. The sky was the color of wet cement. At the school gate, she turned and hugged his leg because that was what she did at the gate, and then she ran off toward the red doors without looking back, which was what she always did, and which he told himself every morning he was proud of. He walked back to the shop with his hands in the pockets of his jacket and his head down, and he thought about Ridley Fleet Solutions, which he had never heard of before last night, but which he had looked up at 4 in the morning on his cracked phone under the covers because he could not sleep. The company was 9 years old. It had 3 physical locations, one of them in Sodo, not 20 minutes from his shop. It had a glossy website with stock photos of smiling drivers and matching polos, none of whom appeared on any of the other pages of the site. It had a Google review page with an average of 4.7 stars, which was suspicious because no fleet maintenance company in the history of the world had ever earned a real 4.7. And when he scrolled down past the first 30 reviews, which were all 5 stars and written in the same faintly stilted voice, he found the real ones. 3 of them. 1-star reviews from small business owners, all of them couriers, all of them saying variations of the same thing. "He stole everything. I signed a contract I didn't understand and I lost my business in 4 months. Do not sign with Marcus Ridley. Do not." One of the reviews had been up for 11 months and had 340 thumbs-up votes and had never been responded to. He had saved a screenshot of each of them to his phone at 4:12 in the morning and gone back to pretending to sleep. Now, walking back from the school in the gray morning, he thought about that, and he thought about the word thresholds. And he thought about Lena saying, "My drivers are out there tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. And he walked a little faster. His phone buzzed against his leg at 9:02. It was a number he didn't know. "This is Lena. Yards at 2244 South Hines, Unit C. 7, okay?" He typed back, 7 works. "Want me to bring anything?" The reply came a minute later. "Coffee. The good kind." "I'm bringing dinner." He read the message twice, then he put the phone back in his pocket and tried to focus on the Chevelle. He got about 3 bolts done before he caught himself staring at the same bolt for a full minute without turning the wrench. He swore at himself, out loud, in the empty garage, and went back to work. The day went slowly and also too fast. At 4:15, he picked Maddie up from after-school care. At 4:30, she was eating a cheese stick at the counter of the shop and telling him about a boy named Theo who had eaten a crayon. At 5:30, he made her chicken nuggets and peas. At 6:15, he called Mrs. Ackerman, who lived in the apartment across the alley and watched Maddie sometimes when he had to work a job off-site. "Rosa," he said, "I hate to ask. How long?" 2 hours, 3 tops. I'll bring her over in her pajamas and a sleeping bag. Adrian, I know, I owe you. You owe me a lot of things. This one I'll let you slide on because the girl is the best thing in my week and you know it. She's the best thing in my week too, Rosa. What? Nothing. 3 hours. Bring her. At 6:40, he walked Maddie across the alley in her fuzzy fox socks, and her sleeping bag under one arm and her book under the other arm. She was uncharacteristically quiet. Bug. Yeah. You okay? Yeah. You sure? She stopped walking. She looked up at him in the orange wash of the streetlight. You're going to see Lena, she said. It was not a question. He crouched down. The wet gravel pressed into his knees through his jeans. Yeah, he said. For a little while, I'm helping her with her work. With the van. With the vans, she's got more than one. I'm just looking at them. I'll be back before you wake up. Okay. 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 You sure okay? She was nice, Maddie said. To me. Yeah, she was. Most ladies don't talk to me like I'm a real person. It caught him under the ribs. He didn't let it show on his face. He had gotten good at not letting things show on his face. He reached out and pushed her hair back behind her ear with one finger. She talked to you like a real person because you are a real person, he said. And anybody who doesn't is wrong, okay? Okay. Give Rosa a kiss for me. I will. He rang the bell. Rosa opened the door in her housecoat and her reading glasses, and she took Maddie in without a word and gave him a long, unimpressed look over the top of her glasses. Adrian nodded at her. Rosa nodded back. It was an understanding they had refined over 4 years. He drove out to South Hines in his truck, a 2004 Chevy half-ton with a cracked windshield and a tailgate that only latched if you hit it in exactly the right spot. The heater worked. The radio did not. He drove with the window cracked and the cold November air coming in, and he did not turn on music because he wanted to think. The yard at 2244 South Hines was a fenced lot behind a strip of warehouses, lit by 2 tall sodium lights that buzzed and threw everything yellow. Lena was already there when he pulled in. She was standing by a chain-link gate with a thermos in one hand and a paper bag in the other, and she was wearing the same canvas jacket as the night before, but dry now, and a gray beanie pulled down over her ears. The van behind her was not the Transit. It was an older Econoline, white, with the same faded Heart Express Courier logo. He pulled up next to it. He got out. Hey, she said. Hey, you came. I said I would. A lot of people say they will. Yeah, he said. Well, she held up the paper bag. Bun me, she said. From a place on Jackson. I figured if you're going to work on my vans for free, you should at least eat while you do it. You didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. That's why I did. He took the bag. It was warm. It smelled like cilantro and pork, and the kind of bread he hadn't had in a long time because he never took himself anywhere that sold it. He felt for a stupid half-second like he might say something embarrassing. He ate the feeling instead. Thanks, he said. Don't thank me yet. I bought 5. That's how many vans we have to look at. He looked past her into the yard. There were the vans lined up in a loose row under the sodium lights. 4 Transits and the Econoline. Another Transit, her personal one from last night, was still at his shop, which made 6 total. She was right. She had told him 6. It just looked different in person than it did in his head. Before we start, she said. Yeah. I need to say something. She said it with the same flat, quiet tone she had used the night before when she had said, son of a bitch. He waited. I was up all night, she said. Most of it. I ran the numbers. If he's been doing this to all of them, if every service invoice for the last 6 months has been inflated the way I think it has, then I've paid him somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 more than I should have. And that's just the money I can count. That doesn't count the performance dings or the routes he's been quietly shifting to his in-house drivers, Or the clients he's been calling behind my back. He's calling your clients. St. Michael's dropped me last week. I didn't know why. I called the procurement director this morning and asked him directly. And he said he'd been told we were going to fold within the quarter and that Ridley had a backup service at a better rate waiting to step in. He told your client you were going under. He told my client I was going under, and then he sold my client the replacement service. Yeah, Adrian didn't say anything for a second. He looked at the vans under the sodium lights. Okay, he said. Okay? Okay, let's look at them. Adrian. Yeah. I don't want you in danger over this. I'm not in danger. You don't know that. Lena. I'm a guy with a flashlight in a fenced yard. Nobody's in danger. Let's look at the vans. She pressed her lips together. She handed him the thermos. He screwed off the cap and the smell of real coffee came up, dark and good. You were serious about the coffee, he said. I was serious. Thank God. I'm not religious. Me either. It was a figure of speech. Figures of speech are lazy. I know. She was almost smiling. He was almost smiling. Neither of them said anything about it. They walked over to the first van. It took him 2 hours and 18 minutes to get through all 5 of them. He did it slow. He did it carefully. He did not touch a bolt. He did exactly what he had told her he would do. He looked. He crawled under each van with a flashlight and a small notebook, and he looked at the belts, the hoses, the brake lines, the steering linkages, the oil pans, the transmission lines, the wheel bearings, the exhaust manifolds. He looked at the spark plugs where he could get at them. He looked at the air filters. He looked at the battery terminals and the alternator mounts and the motor mounts. Lena stood at a distance at first, arms crossed, watching him. After the first van, she moved closer. By the third van, she was crouched down next to him with her own flashlight, and he was pointing things out to her, and she was writing them down in the same spiral notebook he had written in the night before, which she had taken from his truck without asking, which he didn't mind. What he found, in no particular order, on van 1, the Econoline, the rear brake lines had been crimped, not cut. Crimped, in a way that would reduce braking force by maybe 15%, not enough to notice under normal driving, but enough to cause a driver to rear-end somebody in the rain if they had to stop hard. The crimp was fresh, days old, maybe. On van 2, the serpentine belt was scored the same way the Transits had been. A shallow cut, partway through, at the inside of a curve where you would not see it unless you were looking for it. On van 3, someone had loosened the drain plug on the oil pan by about a quarter turn. Not enough to leak immediately. Enough that over a week of driving on rough roads, it would vibrate loose. On van 4, the tie rod end on the passenger side was cracked. Not worn, cracked, like someone had hit it with a hammer. Adrian stared at that one for a long time. What? Lena said. This one, Adrian said. This is the one I don't like. Why? Because a tie rod end that's cracked like this doesn't fail slow. A tie rod end that's cracked like this lets go all at once, and when it lets go, the driver loses the steering wheel. At highway speed, you'd roll the van. Lena did not say anything. Adrian heard her breathing change. Maria drives this one, she said, very quiet. I know. How do you know? It's got a car seat in the back, off to the side, strapped in, and a kid's water bottle in the cup holder, pink. Her daughter, the 3-year-old. She brings her on weekends sometimes when she doesn't have sitter, and she told me and I told her it was fine because, Lena. Because I trusted the van. Adrian, I trusted the van. Lena, breathe. She stopped. She breathed. She put one hand flat on the side of the van, on the faded blue H of Heart Express, and she breathed. Okay, she said after a second. Okay. Okay. What about van 5? Let's look. Van 5 was the cleanest of them. He found exactly one thing, a wheel lug that had been retorqued to the wrong spec, so loose it would have worked itself off within a week. But just the one, on one wheel. Compared to the others, it was almost nothing. He noted it in the book. They sat on the tailgate of his truck afterward. She was holding the thermos cup with both hands. He was holding one of the banh mi. He had not eaten any of it yet. He was not sure he could. The feeling in his chest was not quite rage, because rage was a thing that moved, and this was a thing that was sitting very still. Adrian, she said. Yeah. Tell me the truth. Okay? If I send those vans out tomorrow, don't. If I do, don't, Lena. I have to. I have contracts. If I don't make the runs tomorrow, that's a breach, and that's enough performance dings to bottom me out. He takes the company on Monday. So he takes the company on Monday. Adrian, let him take it. Lena, let him take it. You can start again. You can't start again if Maria's dead. She didn't answer. Listen to me, he said. He turned so he was facing her. Listen to me. I've been on the bad end of a decision like this before. I sat in a room and I listened to a man tell me that the numbers mattered more than a person. The man was wrong. He was wrong then, and he's wrong now. You do not send those vans out tomorrow. She looked at him. What was the job? She said quietly. The job you keep not telling me about. He was quiet for a long moment. I was an insurance investigator, he said, for a big carrier. I worked claims. I was good at it. I was, 26, 27. I found things other guys missed. And I worked for a supervisor who figured out at some point that if I flagged a claim as suspicious, the company could deny it. And if the claimant couldn't afford a lawyer, they'd just go away. And you flagged claims. I flagged claims. Some of them were real fraud. Some of them were people whose houses had just burned down. I didn't always know the difference, and when I didn't know, I was supposed to flag it. For a long time, I didn't ask what happened after I flagged it, and then one day I asked, and then I kept asking, and then I quit. You just quit. I just quit. No severance, no letter. I walked out of the building and I didn't go back. That was a month before Maddie was born. Her mother thought I had lost my mind. Maybe I had. Where's her mother? Gone. Gone how? She didn't want to be a mother, turned out. I found out about a year after Maddie came. She tried for a while. It didn't take. She said she needed to go find herself, and I said, okay, because what else do you say? And she went, and she has not come back, and I don't expect her to. Adrian, it's fine. It's old. It's not fine. No, it's not. But it's old. And the point is, I know what it looks like when a guy uses paperwork to crush a person. I know what that looks like. And I'm not watching it happen to you. I'm not. I already watched it once and I didn't do anything. And it's the thing I think about when I can't sleep, which is most nights, Lena, it's most nights. And I am not doing it again. He had not meant to say that much. He heard himself say it and he felt embarrassed. And he felt like he should take it back, and he also could not take it back because it was true. And she was sitting there looking at him and not looking away. And the sodium lights buzzed overhead, and somewhere far off a dog was barking, and she said very quietly, okay, okay, I won't send them out. Okay, I'll call Maria tonight, and Dev. I'll tell them something. I'll figure out what to tell them. Tell them the truth. The truth will scare them. Lena, the truth has already scared them. They just don't know it yet. Tell them. She nodded. And then, she said, then what? Then we build it. Build what? The case. You said your lawyer said $100,000 in 2 years. Your lawyer said that because she thought you were going to walk into court with a contract and a bad feeling. We're not walking in with a contract and a bad feeling. We're walking in with photographs, with tool marks, with timestamps, with service invoices that say he replaced a belt the same week somebody cut a belt, with the names of drivers he put on the road in sabotaged vehicles, with the client he called behind your back and sold a replacement service to. That's not a contract dispute, Lena. That's wire fraud, and it's racketeering, and it's, a dozen other things with better lawyers than yours attached to them. She was staring at him. Where did you learn to think like this? She said. I worked for the wrong people for 4 years. I learned a lot. And you've been fixing cars for 6 years. I've been fixing cars and raising a kid and not thinking about any of this. Yeah, that's the arrangement. I don't think about it. But you're thinking about it now. Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. She was quiet for a long time. The sodium lights buzzed. Somewhere out on the arterial, a siren started up, Doppler shifted, faded away. I can pay you something, she said. You already paid me $50. Adrian, Lena, I'll figure out a way to pay you. Buy me dinner when this is over. She looked at him sideways. That sounds like a date, she said. It sounds like dinner. Dinner? Dinner. After. After. Fine. Fine. Neither of them looked at each other for a second. He heard her take a sip of coffee. He heard himself unwrap the banh mi. He took a bite. It was, in fact, the best thing he had put in his mouth in a year. Jackson Street, he said, with his mouth full. Noted. Noted, she laughed. It was still the small, tired laugh from the night before, but there was a little more of it. It died off. She looked out across the yard. What do we do tomorrow? She said. Tomorrow you don't send the vans. Tomorrow I go to Ridley Fleet Solutions. You what? As a customer. I own a little auto restoration shop. I do custom jobs. I'm interested in their fleet management services. I've got 3 cars and I'm looking to expand. I want to meet Mr. Ridley and I want to tour his facility. Adrian, you can't just walk in there. I can walk in there. I'm a small business owner. I've got a card. I'll ask to shake his hand. I want to see him. I want to see his shop floor. I want to see who's working on the vans. This is a bad idea. It's the best idea I've got. You can't tell him anything. I'm not going to tell him anything. I'm going to look at him. People like him, the ones who do what he does. They like to be admired. They like a guy who walks in looking impressed. I'll be impressed. I'll be very impressed. I'll leave, and I'll know which of his mechanics has the razor blade in his toolbox. Adrian. Lena, I spent 4 years doing this. Let me do this. She looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded once. Okay, she said, but after. You come here after. You tell me what you saw. Deal. And, Adrian. Yeah. Be careful. I'm always careful. You have a daughter. Yeah. That's what I mean. He looked at her. She looked at him. Yeah, he said. I know. They sat there for another minute, not saying anything. The thermos was empty. The banh mi was gone. The sodium lights hummed. Somewhere behind the fence, a cat was fighting another cat. It was 10:47 at night, and it was cold enough that he could see his breath now, in thin white clouds under the yellow light, and Lena's breath too, hers and his mingling in the air between them. Adrian, she said. Yeah. Thank you. You already said that. I know I already said it. I'm saying it again. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. No, you don't. This is for me too. You understand? This is not all for you. She looked at him. She looked at him for a long time. Her eyes were still tired. They were also, he noticed, a little less tired than they had been the night before. Something in her face had moved, just slightly. Not hope yet. Not quite. But the shape that hope made, when it was still a long way off. Okay, she said. He hopped down off the tailgate. He brushed the crumbs off his jeans. He went around to the driver's side of his truck. She stayed on the tailgate for a second and then hopped down too and walked with him. 7 tomorrow, she said. Same place. 7 tomorrow. And Adrian. Yeah. Bring the kid sometime. He turned. What? Bring Maddie. Sometime. Not now. Not while this is happening, but after. When it's done. Bring her. She can sit in the yard and eat ice cream and tell me about the boy who eats crayons. How'd you know about the boy who eats crayons? You told me 5 minutes ago. You were eating the banh mi, and you said my kid has this friend who eats crayons. I don't remember saying that. You said it. He stared at her. Yeah, he said. Okay, after. I'll bring her after. Good. She turned and walked back to her Econoline. He got in his truck. He started it. He sat there with his hand on the wheel, and he watched her get into her van. She raised one hand, a small wave, through the windshield. He raised one back. She pulled out. He pulled out after her. They went different directions at the end of the block. He drove home the long way. He did not know why. He had a daughter asleep across an alley, and a full day tomorrow that included walking into the office of a man who was, if they were right about any of this, responsible for at least the reasonable possibility of a woman named Maria being dead on I-5 with a 3-year-old in the back. And he drove home the long way, past the waterfront, with the window cracked and the cold coming in. He had not felt this kind of awake in 6 years. He did not know what to do with that either. At 11:20, he picked up Maddie from Rosa's in her sleeping bag, already asleep, and carried her across the alley with her head against his shoulder. Rosa watched him from the doorway and said nothing, and when he turned back at the bottom of her steps, she said quietly, "Adrian." "Yeah, Rosa. Your face is different tonight." "Is it?" "Yes." "Different how?" "I don't know how." "Okay, I'm telling you so you know, that's all. I'm not saying anything about it." "Okay, Rosa." "Go, put the kid to bed." He went. He put Maddie to bed in her own bed, in her own room, above the shop. She did not wake up. The moon-shaped lamp was on. He turned it off. He stood there for a second in the dark. Then he went out to the office, sat down at the desk, and opened the spiral notebook to the page after the one he had written on the night before. He wrote, at the top of the new page, in his blocky all caps, "Van inspection, 5 units." And he wrote it all down. Every cut, every crimp, every loose lug, every cracked tie rod. He wrote the time he had noted each one. He wrote, next to Van 4, underlined twice, "Maria's, child occasionally on board." Then he wrote, at the bottom, "Tomorrow, Ridley Fleet Solutions, 8200 4th Avenue South. Pose as customer. Observe. Do not engage." He looked at it. He tapped the end of his pen on the page. Underneath that, very small, he wrote, "Don't be stupid." Then he underlined that twice too, closed the notebook, turned off the light, and went to sit on the edge of Maddie's bed for a while, watching her breathe, the way he did on nights when he could not yet sleep. Outside in the alley, the rain had started again, soft, steady, the kind of rain that Seattle did all winter long and never quite apologized for. It tapped on the roof and on the hood of his truck and on the roofs of the garages up and down the strip. It tapped on the windshield of a white transit van parked now at the end of the alley, engine cold, fixed, waiting for the morning. Somewhere across the city, in a tower off 4th Avenue South, a man named Marcus Ridley was sitting in a leather chair behind a glass desk, looking at a spreadsheet on a monitor, and the spreadsheet had the name Hart Express Courier at the top of one of the columns, and the numbers in the column had been moving slowly in the wrong direction for months. He sipped from a glass. He did not know yet that one of the numbers had stopped moving the night before. He would find out in the morning. He would not be happy about it, but that was the morning. For now, it was night, and it was raining, and Adrian Cole sat on the edge of his daughter's bed with his hands folded between his knees, listening to her breathe, trying to remember the last time he had felt like he was doing the right thing, and finding, to his own surprise, that he could not, which meant, he thought, that he was probably doing it now. He sat there for a long time before he finally turned in for the night. The morning came slow and gray. Adrian had not slept much, but he had slept, which was better than nothing, and when his alarm went off at 5:30, he was already awake, staring at the water stain on the ceiling above his bed that was shaped, he had decided some years back, like the state of Florida. He made Maddie's lunch. He walked her to school. He came back to the shop. He put on a clean shirt, the gray button-down he wore on the rare occasions he had to meet a client in person, the one with a small coffee stain on the cuff that he had learned to keep tucked back inside the sleeve. He pulled on his good jacket, the canvas work jacket without the paint on it. He ran a comb through his hair. He looked at himself in the small mirror over the bathroom sink and tried to see what a customer looked like. A small business owner, 3 cars in his garage, interested in fleet services. Ambitious but in over his head. Easy mark. He practiced a half smile that did not reach his eyes, and then he made it reach his eyes, and then he stopped because it felt wrong on his face. At 9:50, he parked the truck 2 blocks from 8200 4th Avenue South and walked the rest of the way. The building was a 3-story boxy thing in pale tan brick, with tinted windows and a brass plaque next to the door that said Ridley Fleet Solutions in a font that was trying a little too hard. The lobby had a potted plant that was almost dead and a receptionist who was almost asleep. "Can I help you?" "Yeah, Adrian Cole. I've got a 10 o'clock with somebody named—" "Hang on." He pulled out his phone, squinted at it, put it away. Elaine Park. She said she could show me around." "One moment." The receptionist made a call. Adrian stood with his hands in his pockets and looked at the wall, where a framed photograph showed a row of white vans in perfect formation, like soldiers. Under the photograph, in clean black text, "Professional Fleets, Protected Futures." He had to stop himself from laughing out loud. A woman came out from a side door a minute later. She was maybe 40, small, quick-moving, with a clipboard in one hand and a coffee in the other. Elaine Park. She shook his hand with a grip that was all business. Mr. Cole. Adrian, please. Adrian. Elaine, come on back. You want a coffee? I'm good, thanks. Smart man. Ours is bad. She said it cheerfully, like it was a joke she made a lot. He smiled, the small business owner smile. She led him through the side door and down a hallway lined with framed certificates and motivational prints. Through a window, he could see the shop floor. A big open bay with 3 lifts, a concrete floor painted gray, fluorescent tubes, 5 vans in various states of service. 4 mechanics in dark blue coveralls moving around, doing work. Elaine talked as they walked. She talked well. She knew her material. Ridley Fleet Solutions served 212 client companies across the greater Pacific Northwest, she said. They specialized in high-volume, low-margin operators, couriers, medical delivery, some light freight. They had an in-house software platform that tracked driver performance, fuel efficiency, route optimization, and predictive maintenance. Their insurance pool had some of the lowest premiums in the region because of their data-forward risk profile. Insurance. She said that, data-forward risk profile with a straight face. Adrian nodded along. And Mr. Ridley? He said. Is he here today? He's in. He does a quick meet and greet with prospective clients if his schedule allows. I'll check. He likes to, though. He likes the personal touch. I'd appreciate it. I like to know who I'm in business with. Smart, good instinct. She smiled at him. It was a bright smile. He thought about the single mother of 3 who was on the line for Maria's tie rod, and he smiled back. She toured him through the shop floor. He walked slow. He paid attention. He asked the kind of questions a guy with 3 cars in his garage might ask. How often did they do preventive maintenance? What was the turnaround on a standard service? Did they handle their own parts sourcing? Elaine answered them all smoothly. While she talked, he looked at the mechanics. 4 of them. One older, maybe 50, with a gray mustache and ink on his forearms. A navy anchor and a faded banner. He moved like somebody who knew what he was doing. Good hands, clean work area, tools laid out like a surgeon's, not the guy. One younger, mid-20s, skinny, with a ponytail and earbuds in, tuning a timing belt, focused, not paying attention to anybody else. Probably not the guy. One in the middle bay, heavyset, with a neck tattoo that disappeared down into his coveralls. He was under a van on a creeper. Adrian couldn't see his face. He watched him for a moment. The man's hands, where they were visible, were steady and competent. And the 4th, over by the tool crib, was the guy. Adrian knew it before he had a reason to know it. It was a thing he had learned to trust back in the insurance days. The feeling you got before you had the evidence. The guy was mid-30s, medium build, sandy hair going thin on top. He was not working on anything. He was rearranging his own toolbox. A top drawer was open. Adrian let his eyes pass over it in a half-second, the way you pass over anything you are not supposed to be looking at, and what he saw in the drawer was a neatly arranged tray of small tools. And in the tray, along with the usual picks and probes, a pack of single-edge razor blades. 2 of them were missing from the pack. Adrian did not slow down. He did not look again. He nodded at something Elaine was saying about fuel tracking software, and he kept walking. The guy at the tool crib looked up. His eyes met Adrian's for a second. Pale eyes, a little too close together. Not suspicious, just watching, the way a guy watches a customer he doesn't know. Adrian gave him the easy half-smile. The guy nodded once and went back to his drawer. Adrian filed his face. Height, build, rough age, the hairline, the shape of the ears. He filed the toolbox. Top drawer, second tray from the left. He filed the position on the shop floor, closest to the side door that went back out into the parking lot. Convenient for somebody who needed to leave quickly, and also for somebody who needed to meet vans at odd hours. Mr. Cole, a voice from the other end of the shop floor, deep, warm, professionally friendly. Adrian turned. Marcus Ridley came across the floor with his hand already out. He was in his early 50s, tall, broad in the shoulders and thick in the middle, wearing a charcoal suit with no tie and a white shirt open at the collar. His hair was silver at the temples and dark on top. He had the kind of face that you saw on the back of business advice books. The face of a man who wanted to be photographed looking at a city from a high window. "Adrian," Ridley said, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, dry, held exactly a beat longer than it needed to. "Elaine says you're a custom shop. Classic stuff." "Yeah, restoration mostly. Some modifications. I had a '68 Mustang for about 6 months in my 30s. I loved it, and it nearly killed me." "They'll do that." "Cost me a wife, actually. She hated it." "Probably not just the Mustang, then." Ridley laughed. It was a good laugh. A laugh he had practiced. Adrian laughed back, the right amount, the customer amount. "Come on," Ridley said. "Walk with me. Elaine, I've got him from here." Elaine smiled and melted away. Adrian walked with him. Ridley took him up a set of metal stairs to a mezzanine that overlooked the shop floor and into an office with a glass wall. The office was exactly what Adrian had expected. Big desk, 2 client chairs, a row of certificates, a bar cart with 3 bottles on it, a window looking out over the shop floor like a press box at a stadium. Adrian sat down in one of the client chairs. Ridley went around and sat behind the desk. "So," Ridley said, folding his hands, "tell me about your operation." Adrian told him. He told him a version of the truth. Cole Auto Restoration, 8 years in business, a small shop in Sodo, 6 to 8 active jobs at a time, mostly classics. He said he was thinking about expanding into light fleet work, taking on a couple of client cars on retainer, maybe a delivery van or 2 for a local business he knew. He said he didn't know the fleet side at all. He said he'd been hearing good things about Ridley's outfit from other small operators. "From who?" Ridley said easily. "A guy named Dominic. Dominic Reyes. Runs a parts yard out in Kent." Adrian had picked the name that morning. Dominic Reyes was real. The man ran a parts yard in Kent. Adrian had bought a fuel pump off him 4 months ago. They were not close, but Ridley could call him if he wanted to, and Dominic would say, "Yeah, Adrian Cole, I know him. Bought a fuel pump," which was all Adrian needed. "Dom," Ridley said. He nodded like he was placing the name. Yeah, I know Dom. He speaks well of you. He's a good man." Adrian nodded. Ridley nodded. They were both lying. Dominic Reyes had never heard of Marcus Ridley in his life. "So," Ridley said, "what are you looking for?" "Honestly, I'm looking for somebody who can take a headache off my plate. I'm a good mechanic. I'm not a good businessman. I don't want to track maintenance schedules on other people's vehicles. I don't want to argue with insurance companies. I want to do my work. So if there's a service that does all that for me for a fair price, there is. It's this one." "I figured." Ridley smiled. It was a warm smile. It was a smile Adrian did not like the look of, because there was nothing wrong with it, and that was the wrong kind of nothing. "Let me ask you a question, Adrian." "Sure." "You're a small shop, 8 years. How many employees?" "Just me, mostly. I bring in a helper sometimes for big jobs." "So you're not looking to scale. You're looking to stabilize." "That's a good way to put it." Ridley leaned back. "I'll tell you something. The small operator, the guy with 1 shop, 1 truck, 1 crew, he's the guy this industry eats. Because the margins are thin and the overhead is high, and one bad month, Adrian, can put a guy like you out of business for good. You know what the #1 cause of small business failure is in this sector? Bad luck? Undercapitalization, which is a fancy word for not having enough money when things go wrong. What this whole building does, is we take a lot of small operators and we pool them together so that when one of them has a bad month, the rest of them carry him. That's the insurance side. And on the operations side, we make sure that bad month is as short as possible. We optimize everything. We keep the vehicles running. We keep the drivers happy. We keep the clients billed. You plug into us, you stop worrying about the business side. You just turn wrenches. It was a good pitch. It was a really good pitch. Adrian could feel the shape of how it worked. A young, stressed, scared small business owner, 3 months behind on something, would walk in here and would sit in this chair and would listen to Marcus Ridley describe a version of the world where none of the things they were afraid of would ever happen again, and they would sign whatever he put in front of them. Adrian nodded, slow, thoughtful, the way a customer nods. "That sounds really good," he said. "Honestly. It works. It's been working for 9 years. What's the catch?" Ridley laughed, a real one this time, not the practiced one. "There's always a catch," he said, The catch is, it's a partnership. You sign with us, we're in your business, literally. We see your books, we see your routes, we see your drivers. You want that level of intimacy? A lot of guys don't. A lot of guys want the results without the marriage. They don't last. Intimacy, Adrian said. That's the word I use. I know it sounds funny, but it's accurate. If you're going to trust me with your operation, I have to know your operation better than you do. That's the deal. And if I change my mind, Ridley's face did not change, but something behind his eyes did. Adrian saw it. It was the same thing he had seen in the eyes of the man at the tool crib. Not hostility, just watching. A guy who had been asked a question he had been asked 100 times before. There's an exit clause, Ridley said. There's always an exit clause. You read it, you understand it, you sign it. It's not a marriage in that sense. You can walk out. Most people don't want to, but you can. Expensive? Reasonable. Adrian nodded. He did not press. Pressing would not be what a customer did. Can I think about it? He said. Take all the time you need. I appreciate the tour. Of course. Elaine will send you the materials. My cell's on the card. Ridley slid a business card across the desk. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. Adrian took it. He held it for a second in his hand like he was appreciating the weight of it. Thanks, Marcus. Adrian, good to meet you. They shook hands again. Adrian walked out. Elaine met him at the bottom of the stairs, walked him to the lobby, handed him a folder of glossy materials, and shook his hand one more time. He walked the 2 blocks back to his truck in the cold gray morning, and he did not let himself hurry. He got in the truck. He started it. He sat there with his hands on the wheel, and he realized, only then, that his shirt was stuck to his back, and that his heart was going faster than it should be, and that he had been holding his jaw so tight that his teeth ached. He drove 4 blocks. He pulled over at a donut shop. He went inside and got a coffee he did not want, and sat in a plastic booth and wrote in the spiral notebook until his hand cramped. Sandy hair going thin on top. Mid-30s, pale eyes, tool crib, west side of shop floor. Razor blades in top drawer, 2 missing. Ridley, charcoal suit. Mezzanine office, glass wall, views shop floor. New Dom, who does not exist. Shop layout. 3 lifts, 1 side door to parking lot. Cameras? Did not see any on shop floor. Check lobby. Guy watched me. Ridley watched me watching. He stopped writing. He stared at the page for a second. Ridley watched me watching. It was the last thing he had written, almost without thinking, and now he looked at it and felt a cold thing move through his chest. Because it was true. He had felt Ridley's eyes on him at the top of the stairs, and he had assumed at the time that it was the kind of attention a salesman paid a prospect. But it had not been that kind of attention. It had been the kind of attention a man paid another man he was about to decide something about. He closed the notebook. He drove back to the shop. At noon he called Lena. Hey, how'd it go? Found our guy. You what? Guy at the tool crib, top drawer, razor blades, 2 of them gone. He saw me. Not in a bad way. He's the one. Adrian. And I met Ridley. How was he? He was very good. He's a really, really good salesman. Adrian. He was watching me, Lena. He was watching me more than he should have. The line was quiet for a second. You think he knows. I think he suspects somebody. Might not be me, specifically, but something is up. His posture was wrong for a customer visit. I pulled a name out, a guy in Kent, a guy he doesn't actually know, and he pretended he did. He didn't just say I don't know him. He said he knew him. That tells me something. What? Tells me he's paranoid. Tells me he's the kind of guy who won't admit he doesn't know something in case it's a test. Guys like that are dangerous because they make fast decisions. Adrian, yeah, I kept the vans in. Like you said, I called Maria and Dev and Kenji and the others. I told them there was a safety issue and I was pulling the whole fleet for 48 hours. I told them they'd still get paid. I lied to a couple of clients. I said we had a flu going through the drivers. I moved the 2 most urgent runs to a delivery service out of Tacoma. I took a 15% loss on both of them. I'm going to take more losses tomorrow. I'm going to lose a client by Friday. Okay, but I did it. Okay, good. That was the right call. I know it was the right call. It still felt bad. Yeah, that's how the right call usually feels. Silence. 7 tonight? She said. 7 tonight. He hung up. He looked at the phone in his hand for a second. Then he went and tried to put in a few hours on the Chevelle. He got maybe an hour of good work in. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of checking the clock and pretending he was not checking the clock. At 3:20, he picked up Maddie. She had made a watercolor painting of a cat. The cat had 6 legs. Bug, the cat has 6 legs. I know. Why? Because 2 of them are extra, Daddy, in case the other 4 get tired. He laughed. He laughed hard. It caught him by surprise, and he stood there on the sidewalk outside the school laughing like an idiot. And Maddie looked up at him and smiled the small pleased smile she got when she had made him laugh. And for a minute, he forgot about Marcus Ridley and sandy hair and tie rod ends. For a minute. At 6:30, he called Rosa. Rosa. Again. I'm sorry. Adrian. I know, I'll owe you. I'll fix your Buick for free. I'll fix it twice. The Buick doesn't need fixing. I'll fix it anyway. Silence on the line. Is the girl in trouble? Rosa said. What girl? Adrian. She might be, Rosa. Yeah. Can I bring her? Bring her. At 7, he was at the yard. Lena was waiting. She was wearing the same canvas jacket. It appeared to be, as far as he could tell, the only jacket she owned. But her hair was pulled back tonight, and there was a slight change in how she stood. She was not braced anymore. She was leaning a little. She was letting herself lean. Hey, he said. Hey, you okay? I'm okay. You look tired. I slept okay. Liar. Yeah. She almost smiled. They started in on the plan. It took them 3 hours. They sat in the front seat of his truck because it was warmer than the yard, and because the windows fogged up fast and felt private. Lena had brought a clipboard and a pen. Adrian had the spiral notebook. Between them, they mapped it out. The biggest delivery of Lena's year was 2 weeks away. A medical logistics contract. A one-time transfer of high-value equipment between 2 research facilities, 4 vans, 4 drivers, a tight route, heavy insurance on the cargo. It was the kind of job that Hart Express had been hired for because Lena had personally known the logistics manager at the research facility since graduate school, and the manager had gone to bat for her against 3 bigger bidders. If the job went off clean, it was $180,000 of revenue in one day. If it didn't, Hart Express was done. Not just on paper, but in reputation, in this city, for good. He knows about it, Lena said. Of course he does. He sees my calendar. He'll try to hit it. He'll try to hit it so hard. Then that's where we hit him. Lena looked at him. Adrian, she said, tell me what you're thinking. I'm thinking we let him do it. What? We let him. We don't stop him. We give him exactly the opportunity he's been waiting for. We set it up so he thinks I'm still in the dark, so he thinks you're still scrambling, so he thinks the delivery is going to go wrong on its own. And we set up cameras. In the yard. On every van. Interior, exterior. We set up GPS trackers that aren't in his system. We set up recorders, small ones, wired audio, in the shop bays when the vans go in for routine service. He'll scan for recorders. He might. I can build them into the dashboard, into the cigarette lighter, into places where even a careful guy wouldn't look. Adrian. We give him rope, Lena. We give him rope until he can't stop himself. And when he moves, when his guy with the razor goes in for the kill, we have him on camera. We have him on audio. We have his hands on the wrench. And then we have the clients. Your client, the research facility client, the hospital systems. We have them read to find out, at 9 in the morning on delivery day, that their drivers are being sent out in vehicles that have been sabotaged. That's not a contract dispute anymore. That's a news story. That's a federal case. That's a guy like Marcus Ridley being walked out of his building in handcuffs while the cameras are rolling. Lena was looking at him. You've thought about this all day, she said. I've thought about it since last night, at the donut shop. And while I was waiting for Maddie, and while I was pretending to work on a Chevelle. Adrian. Yeah. This is a big play. It's the only play. Anything smaller, and he swallows it. We try to bring this to a lawyer, just us, with notebooks and photographs. His lawyer buries us in a month. We go to the cops and say a guy has been sabotaging our vans. They take a report and file it, and nothing happens because everybody who's been hurt so far is just a van. Nobody's been in an accident yet. Nobody's dead yet. Adrian, that's his protection, Lena. That's his whole protection. He's been careful. He's been slow. He makes sure the damage is never quite bad enough to cost a life. That's deliberate. He knows exactly how much he can do without crossing the line that brings the federal prosecutors in. We have to cross the line for him. We have to catch him crossing it. On camera. She did not say anything for a long time. Then she said very quietly, "My drivers. Yeah. They'll be on the road. Yeah. In sabotaged vans. No. Adrian. No. Hear me out. They'll be in vans he thinks are sabotaged. We let him sabotage them in the yard. We film him doing it. And then, overnight, before the route, I fix everything he's done. Quietly. Perfectly. Every cut. Every crimp. Every loosened bolt. Your drivers go out in the morning in perfect vehicles. He doesn't know. He's at his desk, watching his phone, waiting for the first van to go off the road. It doesn't. None of them do. And meanwhile, at 9 a.m. sharp, a phone call goes to your clients, to the press, and to the Washington State Attorney General's office. And in the envelope with that phone call is photographs, video, audio, everything. You can fix all 5 vans overnight. I can fix all 5 vans overnight. By yourself. By myself. I've done harder. Adrian. Lena. I'm telling you, I can do it. She was quiet again. I need to bring you somebody, she said. Who? A friend. Dina. She's a paralegal. Her brother is an assistant U.S. attorney in Seattle. She can get this in front of the right set of eyes without it going through Ridley's golf buddies first. Good. Yes. Bring her. And one more thing. Yeah? The cameras, the trackers, the recorders. How much is that going to cost? I can source most of it used. The trackers I can buy online for $30 each. The cameras. I can rig GoPros into the dashboards. I've got 2 I bought at a pawn shop last year. I've been meaning to sell them. Audio recorders I can buy for $40 a piece. We need, I don't know, $400 or $500 of gear. I've got that in the bank. No. Lena. No. You are not spending your own money on this. I'll cover it. I'll sell something. I don't care what. I'll sell the Econoline parts off the 150. Lena. I'll figure it out. Okay. Okay. You figure it out. She nodded, once, hard. There was a soft knock on the passenger side window. They both jumped. Adrian's hand went, without his meaning to, toward the glove compartment where he kept nothing but a flashlight and an old registration. He looked out. Maddie was standing on the gravel next to the truck in her pajamas and her fuzzy fox socks under her winter coat, holding a juice box. Daddy, she said through the window. Rosa said I could come if I didn't leave the truck. He closed his eyes for a second. Bug. I was very quiet. He looked at Lena. Lena was looking at Maddie, and her face was doing the complicated thing again. Yeah, Adrian said. Yeah, come on in, Bug, but only for a minute. Rosa's not going to be happy. Maddie came around the truck. He opened the back door. She climbed into the back seat with the juice box, buckled herself in without being asked, and leaned her small forehead forward between the two of them. Hi, Lena. Hi, Maddie. You look less wet. Lena laughed. It was a real laugh, a surprised one, and she put one hand over her mouth like she had not meant to make that sound. I am less wet, Lena said. Thank you for noticing. Daddy fixed your van. Daddy fixed my van. Daddy fixes everything. There was a small, terrible pause in the truck. Adrian looked forward out the windshield at the sodium lights. He did not look at Lena. Lena did not look at him. Not everything, he said quietly to Maddie. Some things I can't fix, Bug. But I try. You try hard. I try hard. That's what matters. Mrs. Bell said that. Who's Mrs. Bell? My teacher. Mrs. Bell's right. Maddie took a sip of her juice box. Lena, she said. Yeah. Are you in trouble? Lena did not answer right away. Adrian finally looked at her. She was looking at Maddie in the rear view, and her face was very still and very honest. "A little," Lena said. "Yeah. Daddy's going to help you. I know. He's good at helping. I know that too. Don't be scared." "I'll try." Maddie nodded, satisfied with herself, and took another sip of juice. They sat there. The windows were completely fogged. Adrian reached up and wiped a circle on the windshield with his sleeve, and through it he could see the vans lined up under the yellow lights, innocent looking, almost pretty, like a row of sleeping animals. "I'm going to take her back," he said finally. "Yeah, okay. Same time tomorrow?" "Same time tomorrow. Bring Dina." "I'll bring her." He started the truck. Maddie yawned in the back seat. Lena got out, stood there for a second with her hand on the truck door and leaned down to look in at them both. "Thank you, Adrian." "Yeah. And thank you, Maddie." "You're welcome, Lena." Lena hesitated. She looked at Adrian. Her face did the complicated thing again. She did not say anything. She just looked at him for a second, and then she closed the door, and then she turned and walked back toward her Econoline. Adrian watched her go in the rear view for a second. Then he pulled out of the yard. "Daddy?" "Yeah, Bug. I like her." He did not answer right away. "I do too, Bug," he said finally. "I think I do too." "She's sad." "Yeah, she is." "Can we make her not sad?" He thought about that. "I'm trying, Bug. That's the plan. I'm trying." "Okay." She closed her eyes. Before they were 4 blocks from the yard, she was asleep, her head tipped sideways against the seatbelt, the juice box resting in her lap, empty. He drove home slow. He thought about the man at the tool crib, the pale eyes, the missing razor blades. He thought about Marcus Ridley's smile. He thought about the phrase intimacy, the way it had rolled off Ridley's tongue, smooth as an oil slick. He thought about $180,000 in a single day, and 4 drivers, and Maria's 3-year-old in the car seat, and the tie rod end cracked like somebody had hit it with a hammer. He thought about his daughter asleep in the back seat, and the way Lena had looked at her in the rear view, and the way the truck had filled up, for a minute, with something that had felt like the edge of a family. Not a family yet. The shape a family made when it was still a long way off. At a stoplight on Rainier Avenue, with Maddie asleep in the back, Adrian Cole sat with both hands on the wheel and admitted something to himself quietly, in the dark of the cab. He admitted that he was scared. He admitted that he had been scared for a long time, longer than he had known. And he admitted, for the first time since the night the van had skidded into his alley in the rain, that being scared was not the same thing as being stopped. He drove home. He put his daughter to bed. He went out to the office. He sat down at the desk and opened the spiral notebook, and on a fresh page he wrote, at the top, in his blocky all caps, 2 weeks. Underneath that he wrote the names of the drivers, and the route, and the cargo weight, and the pickup window. He wrote the sandy-haired man's position on the shop floor. He wrote Ridley's office layout. He wrote Dina the paralegal. He wrote AUSA, Seattle. He wrote GoPro ×2, trackers ×5, audio recorders ×5. He wrote at the very bottom, in letters just slightly larger than the rest, "Don't get anyone killed, especially not her." He closed the notebook. He sat for a long time in the dark. Somewhere across the city, in a tan brick building off 4th Avenue South, a man with sandy hair opened the top drawer of his toolbox in the empty shop and counted his razor blades, the way he did every night before he went home. There were 5 in the pack. He slid the tray shut, locked the toolbox with a small brass key he kept on a chain around his neck, and walked out through the side door into the parking lot. He did not notice the truck parked a block away with its headlights off. He did not notice anything. He drove home. He ate a sandwich. He went to bed. 2 weeks. Adrian had written in his notebook. 2 weeks until the research facility delivery. 2 weeks to get the cameras built, the trackers placed, the recorders hidden, the paralegal on board, the AUSA briefed, the fallback plans drawn, the backup routes mapped, the night of overnight repair plan walked through from start to finish. 2 weeks to turn a yard full of sabotaged vans into a trap, and a scared small business owner into a woman with a future, and his own quiet, half-forgotten promise to himself into a thing he could finally look at in the daylight. 2 weeks. He turned off the office light. He went upstairs. He He stood in the doorway of Maddie's room in the dark and watched her breathe for a full minute, like he had started doing every night without meaning to, since the Thursday the transit van had pulled into his alley in the rain. Then he went to bed, and he did not sleep well, but he slept some, and that was enough. The 2 weeks did not pass the way Adrian expected them to. They passed the way real weeks passed, in uneven chunks, with long stretches of nothing and sudden bursts of too much at once, with bad sleep and burned coffee, and a leak in the shop roof that he fixed badly at 2 a.m. with a tube of caulk, and with Maddie's school winter concert, which he almost missed because he was running wire through the dashboard of Van 3 and lost track of time. He sprinted the 8 blocks in the cold and slid into the auditorium just as she walked on stage in her paper-plate reindeer antlers, and she found him in the crowd and he waved back, and he cried, a little, in the dark of the back row, for reasons he did not entirely understand. On the second day of the first week, Lena brought Dina to the yard. Dina was small, sharp, quick-eyed, in her early 30s, with a voice that had been trained by years of telling lawyers no. She listened to Adrian lay out the plan without interrupting, and when he was done, she was quiet for a long moment. "You understand," she said, "that if any part of this gets messed up, one camera fails, one chain of custody gets challenged, one thing looks like entrapment instead of documentation. This whole thing walks away from you in court and also possibly walks you into a defendant's chair." "Yeah," Adrian said, "I get that." "Not possibly, definitely." "I get it. My brother is a reasonable man. My brother is also a United States attorney. He does not have an emotional relationship with your van, and he does not have a sentimental interest in your small business. And if you hand him anything less than a complete, airtight, prosecutable package, he will tell you to go home and call the police, and your window will close because Marcus Ridley has very good lawyers, and they will see you coming. Understood? Do you, Adrian?" "Yes." "Dina, I understand." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she nodded. "Okay," she said. "I'll get him on a phone call this week. No names, no specifics, just a hypothetical. If he likes the hypothetical, we go further." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank Lena. She's the only reason I'm in this truck." Lena, sitting in the back seat, made a small sound that was not quite a laugh and not quite an apology. They got the hypothetical meeting. Dina called on a Thursday and said the AUSA was interested. He wanted a proffer. He wanted dates, times, vehicles, photographs. He wanted to see the contract. He would not commit to anything until he had all of it, and he would not commit even then if any of it smelled wrong. But he was listening. That was enough. Adrian built. He rigged the 2 pawnshop GoPros into dashboards of Van 2 and Van 4, hidden behind the defroster vents, with a third camera from a home security kit mounted inside Van 1's cabin light. He ran tiny audio recorders into the wheel wells of all 5 vans, sealed in electrical tape, hardwired to the vehicle battery so they would not run out of power. He planted the GPS trackers, magnetic, the size of a matchbook, inside each engine bay, tucked against the firewall where nobody casually looking would find them. He tested each unit 3 times. The interior cameras fed to an SD card. He would pull them nightly and swap in blanks. The audio recorders pinged to a cloud server through a cell data card Lena had bought under the business name of a courier company in Olympia that had folded last year. Dina had suggested that. It was a small, neat trick. Lena did her part. She kept the vans moving. She rotated them in and out of Ridley's service shop on the normal schedule, one at a time, as if nothing had changed. She took every inflated invoice with a straight face. She paid every performance threshold ding without complaint. She smiled and said thank you when she was told by a woman named Elaine Park that the shop rate was going up another 6% next quarter. She went home at night and did not sleep. On the 10th day, they got their first real footage. It was Van 2. It had gone in for a routine alignment at 2 in the afternoon. Lena had dropped it off herself. She had shaken hands with Marcus Ridley in the lobby because he had come down to say hello, which she reported back to Adrian that evening with a look on her face that Adrian did not like at all. "He was smiling," she said, "the whole time." "Yeah." "Like he knew something, Adrian. He doesn't know anything. He suspects everything. That's his whole way of being. Don't let him get in your head." "He's in my head." "Yeah." She had picked the van up at 4:30. Adrian had pulled the SD card from the dashboard camera that night. They had sat in his office above the shop on the small couch that Maddie used as her reading spot and watched the footage on his laptop. It was grainy. It was silent. The audio recorder was in the wheel well, a separate file. But it was clear. At 3:17 p.m., Sandy Hare had opened the driver's door of van 2, leaned in, and very casually, very calmly, taken a small tool from his coveralls and worked it for about 9 seconds into a specific point behind the steering column. He had then closed the door, walked around to the back of the van, opened the rear doors, spent 30 seconds doing something they could not see from the interior camera, and closed the doors again. He had walked away. He had done the whole thing while whistling. "That's the guy," Adrian said quietly. Lena did not answer. She was staring at the screen. "Lena." He was whistling. "Yeah." He was whistling, Adrian, like he was washing dishes. "Yeah." She got up. She walked over to the sink in the corner of the office. She stood there for a second with her back to him, her hands braced on the counter. Then she turned on the faucet and splashed water on her face, hard, the way a person does when they are trying not to throw up or not to cry. Adrian did not get up. He knew better than to get up. He watched her from the couch. He felt something that was not fury, because fury was hot, and this was cold. A clean, cold thing running through his chest. "I'm going to send it to Dina tonight," he said quietly. "Okay." "Lena." "Okay, Adrian." "We're winning." She turned around. Her face was wet. Her jaw was set. "Yeah," she said. "I know." 4 days later, they were not winning anymore. It was a Tuesday. It was raining again, the hard slanting kind. Lena had one of her drivers, Dev, making a short run from a lab in Tukwila to a hospital pharmacy on Capitol Hill. It was supposed to be a 90-minute round trip. The van was not one Adrian had found anything wrong with. It was the clean one, Van 5, the one where they had only found the loose lug. At 4:42 p.m., Dev called Lena from the side of Route 99 and said the steering wheel had gone loose in his hands halfway through a turn. He had gotten it stopped on the shoulder, in the rain, with the hazards on. He was shaken. The cargo was intact. At 4:46, Adrian was in his truck. He got there in 20 minutes. Dev was standing outside the van in his windbreaker, the hood of the van already up, Lena pulling in right behind Adrian in her personal transit. They all stood in the rain and looked at the engine bay. Adrian ducked under and shone his flashlight up into the steering column. "Son of a bitch," he said. It was the tie rod end on the driver's side. Cracked. Exactly the way Maria's had been cracked. "I cleared this one," he said. "I inspected this one. There was nothing wrong with it." "When?" 2 nights ago. He did it in between. He did it in between. Lena was crouched next to him, her hair plastered to her forehead, her jacket soaked through again. She looked at him. He looked at her. "He didn't do it at the shop this time," Adrian said. "This van hasn't been in the shop since last week. He did it at the yard. The yard's fenced. The fence is 7 feet of chain link and 1 padlock. I could get over it in 30 seconds. Adrian. "He has a key, or he knows a guy who does, or he jumped the fence. He came to your yard, Lena. At night, he came to you." Dev was standing a little apart, listening, trying not to listen, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He was young. He was 25, maybe. He had been married for 8 months. Adrian could see, in the hunch of his shoulders, that he was beginning to understand exactly what kind of thing had just almost happened to him. Lena stood up. She walked over to Dev. She put her hand on his arm. "Dev," she said. "Yeah, boss. I'm going to tell you something, and I need you not to get in your truck and quit on me, because I need you this week. But I am going to tell you." "Okay." "Somebody cut your tie rod." Dev looked at her for a second. Then he looked at the van. Then he looked at Adrian. Then he looked back at Lena. "How long have you known?" he said. "I've known somebody has been doing things to the vans for about 2 weeks. I didn't know anybody had done anything to yours until today. I pulled the whole fleet to inspect them. I thought yours was clean. It was clean. He got to it after." "He, Marcus Ridley, I believe. We're building a case. Adrian has cameras in some of the vans. We have footage of the guy who works for Ridley doing this to van 2-3 weeks ago. We're going to federal on Wednesday. We're not going to the police because the police will tell Ridley before they tell us, and that will tip him. You have a right to quit. You have a right to be furious. I'm furious. I'm sorry. Dev, I'm so sorry. Dev did not say anything for a long time. The rain hissed on the asphalt. A semi went by and sent up a sheet of water that almost reached them. Maria knows, he said. Maria knows as of tonight. I'm telling her at 7. The other guys? Tonight. All of them. Tonight. You should have told me 2 weeks ago. You're right. No, you don't get to just say I'm right. Okay? I drive for you. I trust you. I have a wife. He broke off. He ran a hand down his face. The rain was running off his nose. I have a wife, Lena. I know. If this van had rolled today, I know, Dev. Don't say you know. You don't know. He stood there for a second. Then, to Adrian's surprise, he took 2 steps away, leaned his forearms against the open door of the van, and put his forehead down on his forearms and breathed. Adrian very quietly said, Dev, I can fix it on the shoulder in 20 minutes. I've got the part in the truck. We get the van off the road tonight. You get a ride home with Lena. You come back on Thursday if you want to come back at all. We pay you for this week either way. Dev did not answer right away. His shoulders were shaking slightly. Then he lifted his head. I'll come back Thursday, he said hoarsely. But you tell me everything, from now on. Everything. Everything, Lena said. Okay. Okay. Adrian fixed it on the shoulder in 24 minutes. He got the van moving again and drove it back to the yard himself while Lena drove Dev home in her transit. He put van 5 behind the locked gate, and then he sat in his truck for a long time with the engine running and the heater on and the rain on the windshield, and he watched the yard. At 7:50, his phone rang. It was Lena. Hey. He left a note, she said. Her voice was flat. Who did? Ridley. I just got home. There's an envelope on my door, no stamp, hand-delivered. Lena. It's a card, a get well card with a little picture of a van on it, and inside it says, thinking of your fleet, drive safe. Mister. Silence. He knows, Lena said. He suspects. Adrian, he knows. He knows something. He doesn't know what. If he knew what, he wouldn't be sending cards. He'd be sending lawyers. He knows I know. Yeah, he knows you know. Adrian. Lena, listen to me. Listen. He was pulling out of the yard as he said it, already halfway to her place. He had never been to her place. He did not know her address. She was giving it to him now over the phone, in a voice that was trying very hard to sound normal and failing. I'm coming over, he said. Okay. I'll be there in 20. Okay. Don't open the door for anybody but me. Okay? Lena. Yeah. It's gonna be okay. Don't say that. Okay. Just come. I'm coming. He drove. Her apartment was on the second floor of a 4-story building in Beacon Hill, above a Vietnamese bakery that was closed for the night, its shutter pulled down and a yellow light glowing behind it. He parked in the loading zone out front. He ran up the stairs. She had the door open before he got to it. She was in sweatpants and a thermal shirt. She had taken her hair down. She looked very small in the doorway. The card was on the kitchen counter behind her. Come in, she said. He came in. She closed the door. She locked it, 2 deadbolts and a chain. Then she turned and looked at him. And her face did something that he could not describe. And she walked across the kitchen and put her forehead, just her forehead, against the front of his jacket. She did not put her arms around him. He did not put his arms around her. They just stood there. I'm really tired, Adrian, she said. I know. I'm really tired. I know, Lena. I have been tired for 4 years. I know. She stayed there for another second, and then she pulled back. She walked to the counter. She picked up the card. Look at this, she said. He took it. It was exactly what she had said. A cheap drugstore get-well card, a cartoon of a bandaged dog on the front, a little sticker of a white van next to the word well. Inside, in a tight, neat handwriting that he did not recognize, thinking of your fleet, drive safe. Mister. Handwriting's not his, Adrian said. His secretary's. Elaine's. Probably Elaine's, yeah. He had her write it. He made her write it. He did. Lena, this is actually a good thing. How is this a good thing? Because it's a threat. It's a verifiable threat. It's in his employee's hand. It's on his letterhead color scheme. It's hand-delivered without a stamp. It's the exact kind of thing that a prosecutor loves. He just gave Dina another exhibit. He's telling me he knows where I live. Yeah, he is. She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. She put her head in her hands. My drivers, she said. Maddie. What about Maddie? She lifted her head. He's going to come for Maddie, she said. You went to his building. He's going to figure out who you are. He's going to come for her. Adrian, tell me I'm wrong. Adrian's stomach did something cold and sharp. He did not answer right away. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. He set the card down on the table between them. Lena, he said slowly, listen. Don't tell me I'm wrong unless I'm wrong. You're not wrong, but he's not going to come for her tonight. Guys like him don't move on kids fast. They use kids as leverage. They send a message first, a stronger message. This card is his first message. The next one will be bigger. We don't have forever, but we have a few days. A few days? Dina's brother is seeing the proffer on Friday. That's 3 days. If he moves on it, we can have a federal action in motion by Monday. Monday. I know. Monday, Adrian. I know. She looked at him. Her eyes were full and not spilling. I'm going to stay at my mom's for a few days, she said. With my mom, in Renton. I don't want to be here alone. And you should take Maddie somewhere. Okay. Rosa has a sister in Yakima. I can send her out there on a bus tomorrow. Rosa will go with her. I already asked Rosa about it last week, just in case. Lena looked at him. You asked Rosa about it last week. Yeah. You knew this was coming. I thought it might come. I didn't know. I hoped it wouldn't. Adrian. I'm sorry, Lena. I'm sorry I didn't say anything. Don't be sorry. I'm sorry. Don't. She reached across the table. She put her hand on top of his, just for a second, and squeezed. You're trying to protect her, she said. Don't apologize for that, ever. He looked at her hand on his. Her fingers were cold. He turned his palm up slowly, and she did not pull away, and he closed his hand around hers. And for a long second they just sat there, at a kitchen table in Beacon Hill, in a second-floor apartment above a closed bakery, with a get-well card on the table between them, holding hands. She pulled back. She stood up. She said, I'm making you tea. I don't drink tea. You do tonight. She made tea. They drank it. They talked, low and slow, until 11:30. They went over the delivery day plan one more time. 4 vans, 4 drivers. The research facility would expect pickup at 6:40 a.m. The drivers would be notified the night before, late, after all the sabotage monitoring cameras had caught whatever Ridley was going to have his guy do. Adrian would pull the footage, pull the tracker's data, and spend the overnight in the yard by himself, with a work lamp and a thermos and a box of parts, undoing everything. By 6 a.m., every van would be perfect. By 6:40, the drivers would be rolling. At 9, Dina's brother would make the call. By noon, Marcus Ridley's name would be on the local news. They went over it. They went over it again. It was a plan with a lot of moving parts and not a lot of room for error, and they both knew it. Adrian? Yeah. Promise me something. Okay. If it goes wrong, I don't mean a little wrong, I mean all the way wrong. You take Maddie and you leave. You don't try to save any of this. You take her and you go. My drivers can go to the police. The vans can burn. I can start over. Lena, promise me. I promise. Okay, same deal. If it goes wrong, you go. You go to Renton. You stay at your mom's. You don't come back to try to help, yeah? Yeah. Yeah? Yeah, okay. I promise. He left at 11:40. He drove home through streets that were almost empty, through a city that was the same city it had been a month ago and felt, to him, like nothing he recognized. He parked behind his shop. He went upstairs. Maddie was asleep. He sat on the edge of her bed for a long time. He woke her up gently at 6 the next morning and told her she was going to have a vacation with Rosa, in Yakima, at Rosa's sister's house, and there would be a dog there named Butterscotch, and she would miss 3 days of school. She was 6. She took the news about the dog better than she took the news about missing school. She packed her own bag. She put in the fox socks. Rosa came over at 7. She looked at him. She did not ask questions. She said, "I'll call every night, 6 o'clock your time. She'll pick up." "Thank you, Rosa." Adrian. "Yeah. This thing you're doing." "Yeah. Don't die." "I won't." "I mean it, Adrian." "I mean it too, Rosa." She took Maddie's hand. Maddie looked up at him. She said, "Daddy." "Yeah, Bug." "Save Lena." He crouched down. He held her face between his hands for a second. "I'll try, Bug," he said. "I'm going to try very hard." "Double fox socks?" "Double fox socks." She hugged his neck, hard. Then she went with Rosa down the alley to the truck and got in and waved through the back window as Rosa pulled out. Adrian stood in the alley for a long time after they were gone. Then he went back into the shop and he locked the door behind him and he started getting ready. The next 5 days were the fastest 5 days of his life and also the slowest. Dina's brother took the proffer on Friday. He liked what he saw. He asked for one more piece of evidence, something that tied Marcus Ridley personally to the sabotage, not just his employee. Adrian and Lena spent Saturday and Sunday building it. They ran a small test, a 6th van they pulled from storage that Lena had never put on Ridley's books, a ghost vehicle. They took it in for service on Monday morning with a fake VIN that traced back to Hart Express. On the interior camera at 2:08 p.m., Marcus Ridley himself walked down onto the shop floor, spoke to sandy-haired Kyle, pointed at the ghost van, and said clearly on audio, "Make it a bad week for her, Kyle. Her fourth quarter's too good. I want her soft by the holiday." Kyle, clearly on audio, said, "Soft how?" Ridley, clearly on audio, said, "You know how." That was the piece they had been missing. Dina's brother called at 9 p.m. Monday night. He said, "Green light. Do it Wednesday." He said, "My team will be ready at 8 a.m. He said, "Do not go off script." Tuesday night, Adrian went to the yard alone. It was 9:42. Dark. Cold. The sodium lights buzzed. He had parked his truck around the corner on purpose and walked the last block. He had the cameras running remotely from a laptop in a Denny's 3 miles away, feeding to the cloud. He had a parts cart in the yard, under a tarp, waiting. He had coffee in a thermos and a sandwich he knew he was not going to eat. At 10:07, a dark sedan pulled up to the yard's service gate. A figure got out, went to the gate, and used what was unmistakably a key. Adrian, from behind the dumpster at the far end of the yard, watched Kyle walk in. Kyle walked straight to van 3. He went to work. The cameras ran. The audio ran. Adrian did not move. He breathed slow. He did not breathe slow enough. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He watched Kyle work on van 3 for 16 minutes. Then van 4. Then van 1. He was fast and he was methodical and he whistled, faintly, the whole time. At 11:41, Kyle got back in his car and drove away. Adrian stayed behind the dumpster for another 10 minutes, listening. Then he came out. He went to the vans, he uncovered the parts cart, he got to work. He worked through the night. He did not stop. He drank the coffee, then more coffee, then old coffee. He did not eat the sandwich. He undid everything Kyle had done, on each van, in order, carefully, under a work lamp clipped to the open hood. He replaced the tie rod ends. He retorqued the lug nuts. He fixed the oil pans. He cleaned the oil caps. He replaced the belt that Kyle had nicked. He checked the brake lines. He checked them twice. At 4:06 a.m., his phone buzzed. "Lena, are they clean?" He typed back, "Clean." She typed back, "I'm going to tell the drivers at 5. He typed back, "Tell them everything. Give them the choice." She typed back, "I will." He typed back, "Lena." There was a long pause. She typed back, "Yeah?" He typed, "Nothing, just be careful today." She typed, "You too." He put the phone down. He worked on Van 1's brake booster for another 20 minutes. He was the last thing on the list. The sky was starting to go gray over the warehouses to the east. His hands were black with grease and cold to the bone, and the thermos was empty, and the inside of his mouth tasted like metal and coffee grounds. Somewhere across the city, Marcus Ridley was asleep in a house with a view. Somewhere across the city, Kyle was asleep in a one-bedroom apartment. Somewhere across the city, a federal prosecutor was setting his alarm for 6. Somewhere across the city, a woman named Lena Hart was putting on her jacket and tying her hair back and drinking a cup of black coffee and walking out to her car. Somewhere in Yakima, a 6-year-old girl was asleep in a guest bed, with a dog named Butterscotch on the floor beside her and her fox socks on her feet. And in a fenced yard in Sodo, under the gray light of a Wednesday morning that had not quite started yet, Adrian Cole closed the hood of the last van, wiped his hands on a red shop rag, and leaned against the fender for a second with his eyes closed, just breathing. The plan was set. The trap was set. He straightened up. He folded the parts cart back into its tarp. He walked out of the yard, locked the gate behind him, and went to meet the day. The drivers rolled out at 6:41, 1 minute late, which Adrian took as a small mercy from a universe that had not given him many. He sat in his truck half a block from the research facility's loading dock and watched each of the 4 vans pull in on time, load, pull out, and disappear into the morning traffic. None of them wavered. None of them drifted. The tie rods held. The belts held. The brake lines held. By 8:15, 3 of the 4 deliveries were logged complete. By 9:02, the 4th van rolled into its destination, and Dev texted Lena a single word: done. At 9:04, Dina's brother made the call. Adrian did not see the raid. He heard about it later, in pieces. A team of federal agents walked into 8200 4th Avenue South at 9:22 that morning with a warrant. Elaine Park opened the door and, to everyone's mild surprise, did not look surprised. Marcus Ridley was in his office, on a phone call, in the charcoal suit. He did not run. He did not shout. He stood up slowly from behind his glass desk and put his hands flat on the surface like a man who had rehearsed the moment in his head for years and found that, in the actual moment, he had nothing prepared to say. Kyle was on the shop floor. He tried to walk out the side door. He did not make it. By noon, the story was on the local news. By 2, it was on the national wire. By 3, the phone at Hart Express Courier was ringing with reporters, and Lena, on Dina's very strict advice, was not answering any of them. By 4, she was at Adrian's shop. She walked in through the open bay door without knocking. He was sitting on an overturned milk crate next to the Chevelle because he had sat down to rest for a minute at 2 in the afternoon and had not gotten up since. He looked up when she came in. She looked at him. Neither of them said anything for a second. "We did it," she said. "Yeah, we did it, Adrian." "I know." She crossed the garage and sat down on the concrete next to the milk crate, her back against the front tire of the Chevelle, her knees drawn up. She looked like she had not slept in a month, because she had not. He looked, he was sure, worse. "Maria called me," she said. "Crying. She said thank you. I couldn't talk. I just said, I'll call you back." "Yeah." Adrian. "Yeah, Lena." "Is this the part where we figure out what we are?" He was quiet for a long time. Not because he did not know the answer, because he did. "I think we already are," he said. "I think we've been it for a while. I think we've just been too tired and too scared to say it out loud." She leaned her head against the tire and closed her eyes. "Yeah," she said. "I think that too." He reached down. He took her hand. She let him. They sat there like that for a long time, in the shop, with the Chevelle above them and the rain starting up again outside. The soft, steady Seattle rain that had been the weather the night they met, and had been the weather half the nights since. Maddie came home on a Thursday evening 3 days later. She ran down the platform at the bus station with her backpack bouncing and the fox socks peeking out the top of her shoes, and she jumped into his arms, and he held her for a long time without saying anything. Rosa stood behind her with a suitcase and a faintly exasperated expression. Lena stood a few feet away, hands in her pockets, waiting. Maddie pulled back and looked at her. "Lena." "Hi, Maddie." "Did Daddy save you?" Lena looked at Adrian over Maddie's head. Her eyes were very full. "Yeah, Bug," Lena said. "He did." "Okay," Maddie said, satisfied the way she said okay when a thing had gone the way a thing should go. It took 6 months for Marcus Ridley to accept a plea. It took a year for the civil settlement to work through, and in the end, Lena recovered $84,000 of what had been stolen from her, which was less than she was owed and more than she had expected. She used part of it to pay off her leases outright. She used part of it to buy 2 new vans in her own name through her own insurance at her own rates. She used part of it to take her drivers and their families to a cookout on a Saturday in May in a rented park shelter in Green Lake, where Dev's wife met Maria's 3-year-old, and Maria's 3-year-old fell asleep in a lawn chair with a hot dog in her hand. Adrian was at the cookout, of course. Maddie was at the cookout. They were by then in most of the places Lena was. The new company opened on a Saturday in late September. They called it Cole & Hart Automotive and Logistics, in that order, because Lena had insisted, and because Adrian had stopped arguing with Lena about small things about 6 months in. It was not a big operation. It was a rented shop twice the size of the old one, 4 bays, 8 employees, and the same 6 vans, with Lena's 2 new ones added. They had a grand opening. They hung a sign. Adrian's landlord, who had finally cut down the lilac bush and then felt guilty about it, sent flowers. Maddie stood between them in the sun, in a yellow dress she had picked out herself and the fox socks she had refused to give up, holding both their hands. She was 7 now. She had started losing teeth. She had opinions. At some point during the little speech Lena was giving to the 20 people who had come, the drivers, the families, Dina, Rosa, a couple of clients, the guy who ran the coffee cart on the corner, Maddie tugged on Lena's hand until Lena crouched down. "What, Bug?" "Are you going to marry my daddy?" There was a small, surprised laugh from the people who had heard. Lena's face turned the color of a brick. "Maddie, because you should. He's better when you're here. He smiles more." Lena looked up at Adrian. Adrian looked down at Lena. There was a long second in which neither of them said anything, and the small crowd got very quiet, and the September sun came down through the open bay door of the new shop and lit up the concrete in a square. Lena stood up. She took Adrian's hand, the one that wasn't already holding Maddie's. She did not say anything dramatic. She just held it. She held it in front of everyone, and she did not let go, and she looked at him the way she had looked at him that first night, except without the tired part, because the tired part had gone somewhere else a while ago and had not come back. "Yeah," she said quietly to him, not to the crowd. "Eventually, if you want." "I want," he said. "Okay," she said. "Okay," he said. Adrian thought later that he had spent most of his life believing that the thing that would save him was going to be something big. A decision. A moment. A single clean act of courage that would let him stop carrying the guilt of the man he had once been. He had been wrong about that. What had saved him, in the end, had not been any one act. It had been 1,000 small ones, done badly and tiredly, and mostly on not enough sleep. A towel handed to a wet stranger, a bolt tightened under a work lamp, a promise made to a 6-year-old on a pair of fox socks, a hand held across a kitchen table in the middle of the worst week of another person's life. The big things, he thought, were almost always just the small things, added up, by somebody who had decided not to walk away. Nothing was broken on the day the shop opened. Nothing was hidden, nothing was left unfinished. And that, for the 3 of them, was enough.